Due to some language and content, listener discretion is advised.
It has been 13 years since the formation of the Omaha, Nebraska-based band Aurasing. It has been 9 years since that band has called it a day. This is not a random story about some Midwestern band you have probably never heard of. This is a story about change, maturity, and camaraderie told through the lens of that band. How do creative endeavors sometimes take a life of their own and impact your core values? Today on the podcast, two of my best friends, Corey and Lowell, will be joining me, and we'll be talking about our band, how we got started, the pleasant surprises along the way, and how it's influenced the people we have become today. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Caught on the Mic. How you guys doing?
Hey, Mike.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. So we're going to talk about...
Hang on, I'm going to open this beer real quick.
We haven't even started.
Did that get caught on Mike's mic with Mike? No.
I don't know, but I feel like I need it.
Sounds inappropriate. All right.
So I kind of want to set the framework before we get going. We all played in various projects over the years, not necessarily together. 2005, Corey and I had a band together that was called Right Side Impact. And this band came together, basically, I had a bunch of material that I had written that didn't fit other projects. And Corey hadn't been in a band for quite some time, right?
Oh, yeah. I did just kind of the bullshit, college acoustic duo kind of thing, but nothing serious.
Right.
Play Wonderwall a lot, right?
Yeah. Actually, I have a great story about that.
That's
I don't know
a
if
Mike
we have
joke.
time to get to it, but
It is a Mike joke.
I'll tell it real quick. So back in my college town, it was a small college town, and they had we were doing this acoustic duo thing at a bar on it was right before Christmas break, so the place is packed, and a Budweiser truck shows up, or a Bud Light truck shows up, and they're delivering Bud Light bottles and cans, and it was back when Bud Light. You remember when Budweiser was promoting the Born on Date thing, and really advertising freshness and stuff like that. So they pull up and they start just distributing it to the bar, and which is a great idea in a college town. So everybody's got bottles and cans and stuff like that. And the singer, he has to go pee. And so he's like, we're in the middle of a set, no time for breaks. Super professional outfit, by the way, super professional band. So he goes off for what feels like forever. And I'm not a singer really. So I just start strumming E chords and F chords and singing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. And he comes back and the whole bar is singing Christmas songs with me up there with the chords clearly don't even match. It doesn't even matter. But I think Bud Light kind of saved me that night. So I don't drink Bud Light anymore, but I'll always appreciate it for that reason.
Long live Bud Light. Huh?
Yeah. Well, so we're already off course.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Lowell said I got a joke about Wonderwall, and my joke is how do you know find the asshole at a party? He's the guy that finds the acoustic guitar and starts playing Wonderwall.
Oh God, absolutely.
I'm that asshole.
I don't know how many there's not a washer or dryer in my college town that at a party that I didn't sit on top of and play Wonderwall at some point.
I was gonna say, yes, Mike. Hey, can you please stop playing Wonderwall? Can you please stop playing Wonderwall? And he says, maybe.
Dude, once I found the Ryan Adams version of it, I was just like, dude, I can't hate this song. I fell in love with it all over again.
I love the original. I mean, seriously.
Oh, yeah. But getting back on track, Corey and I had a band that was called Right Side Impact. We had that band from 2005 to 2006. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think we were really proud of the songs that we were writing. Just maybe the technical aptitude and performance aptitude of the band probably didn't live up to what you or I thought those songs deserved. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I guess on a long enough timeline, if life hadn't intervened in such a way that band could have maybe gone on a little bit longer, and maybe Aurasing never would have come to fruition because we'd just still be doing that thing. Definitely more poppy than what Aurasing was, but at the time, that was kind of what I think we were both after, and it was super fun. Like it wasn't around very long, but it was a lot of we
crammed a lot into 1 year, and that was kind of the thing. Is I knew you were kind of starting to make your exit, and then my ex-wife became pregnant with my daughter, and so I was just like, I'm done playing in bands. Like, I'm done. Like, this is over. And I spent the next 6 months, eating pizza, snacks, drinking Pepsi, and watching Scrubs reruns, and putting on about 50 pounds worth of weight.
Did you have a Netflix subscription back then?
No, dude, it was on comedy. Dude, this was like 2006. It was they would
first run.
Yeah, they had marathons on Comedy Central that that I was always catching. So, but kind of tying that into Aurasing. So here I was, like, my ex-wife has my daughter. I've put on like 50 pounds worth of weight. You're missing playing music. I'm missing playing music. So we kind of said, hey, let's put together a no pressure, no stress project. No pressure, no stress. We'll just play at a bar every once in a while. We don't have any lofty ambitions.
We're going to come out of the gate with like a perfect demo, and like people are going to love us right out of the gate. We'll be like, no, we're not going to play shows. We're just going to like work on our craft.
Yeah. It's just this is about the music, man. It's about the music. It's about the artistry, and it kind of took on a life of its own.
Yeah, a little bit.
And so you put out an ad, and this guy responded to it.
Yeah, like, so we were just kind of two dumb, forlorn idiots that were looking to do music again, and like, okay, great, like let's do a band together, and let's find some completely different people to play with. So so we started putting ads out and like recruiting different folks, and I think Lowell, you might have been the first one to actually like join the band. Is that your recollection?
That is my recollection. I remember seeing, if memory serves, I want to say Craigslist. Something to that effect. I mean, back when people went looking for band members on Craigslist, it wasn't just...
I had been going through like Slam Omaha, like the old website Slam Omaha, like looking for different drummers there, and then I finally broke down to Craigslist because I probably jammed with like 5 or 6 different drummers, and if not more, and half of them were like, well, let's do a cover band, and let's do an original band. It just like wasn't the right fit. And then I get this email from Lowell, and I'm like, who's this 70-year-old asshole?
Yes, that was what we both thought. We're like, Lowell?
Beach Boys tribute band. Here we come.
Yeah, it's like, fucking, whose grandpa is this?
But you thought about it. You're like, if we can hold it down, maybe we'll cover him. That sounds like a Mike Clark thing to do. We'll put him in the back. There won't be any lights on him. Just holds it down.
Drums. Like, one of us will learn how to play drums, and we'll make it work.
It's almost like another popular local band with a dad drummer.
Yeah, exactly. That was I think we had a conversation similar to that, and we were pretty desperate. So Mike's like, so all right, reach out to him. And so I remember going over to your house. It was our first practice space, like in your basement next to the water heater.
Oh yeah, that was pretty cramped.
It was really cramped, but it was fun. We had a good time, and I don't know if I've ever met like another musician that was like more prepared for it, because you had like downloaded all the Right Side Impact stuff, and I think my impression was that you thought we were just kind of restarting Right Side Impact.
That's what I was just going to interject with. Is I don't know. I think we were all on 3 different ships with that.
Oh, totally.
Because you were using Right Side Impact material to kind of test people. I think you thought that we were...
Well, somebody gave me a disc or forwarded me this, and I can't hammer it down, but I got the impression that this was what, I was being tested based on. So I kind of, maybe I just jumped to the conclusion that that's what it was.
No, honestly, and it's a pretty innocuous train of thought if you really think about it, because to some degree, I think we even pondered that to some degree, because we had learned pretty much, we had relearned, and he had learned pretty much the entire disc. And then the first song outside of that disc that we had written together as a band was Gunfight, which that was the first official Aurasing song.
It wasn't called Gunfight when it started, though.
What was it called? It was.
Oh, hang on, I have the old.
Oh, yeah.
I was going to say we had all kinds of great working titles.
Editorial note: Corey has this.
Right
great.
Before I came here, I was like, well, I should just log on to my old Yahoo account and see what.
He has this
what
way of
Yahoo's
naming
been-
songs, like when they're in the pre-production and writing phase, that is just fantastic.
Oh yeah, like
Great-
do
great
you guys
working
remember?
titles.
Did Aurasing have a MySpace account?
Yes.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Did we
because
have
like
a
I found
MySpace
this.
account? Come on.
This isn't certainly not a visual medium, but I found this thing that I was like, hey guys, can we please use this as a glad we're friends? And it's like these two like frogs in like suits and they're in Barca loungers next to a fire. It's like, you remember Frog and Toad are friends? Like
Absolutely.
It's basically them, and it's you designed this, Mike. I'm surprised you don't remember. It looks like a storybook. So there's like that picture.
Oh, yeah,
on one
totally
side,
forget about
and
that.
on the
Oh,
other
my
side,
God.
in this like cursive script with like flowers all around the border, it says Aurasing is glad we're friends.
Okay, I do remember that now that you say
So,
yeah, dude.
So, but yeah,
Yeah, I will say that on the Caught on the Mic Facebook page, I am going to post a few pictures. So anybody that's listening to this that kind of wants to follow up with whatever the hell we're talking about.
yeah. There's, I can't find it, but I'll send it to you.
Yeah, so anyways, Corey had this way of naming songs, and the first official song we've written as Aurasing was Gunfight. Now, did we add the second guitarist or the bass player next? Do you guys remember?
It was our bass player came next. I was actually looking for a guitar player, and I've been, again, same thing. Like, I'm going over to people's houses and like jamming and stuff like that. And so I went over to this like tweaker dude's house, and didn't know that at the time. But and so I go over to this guy's house, and he's like, well, I actually brought you over here to recruit you for my band. And his bass
that the way
player
it
was
always
there.
goes?
And he was, like, him and I hit it off. And so, you know, got back, and I think I reported back to you and was like, yeah, the guitar player really wasn't, like, the guy. But, like, I think the bass player might actually
Yes,
be a good
and then
dude.
I super sleuthed the bass player through his wife's MySpace page.
Oh, I remember hearing
my
that
God.
story.
Yeah, I messaged his
Forgot about
wife's
that.
MySpace page to get a hold of him, and that's how we ended up with the bass player. So
Right,
at this point
right,
in time,
right.
you know, we've got Corey, myself, and you, Lowell. How did you, like, you hadn't been playing in a band for a long period of time up to that. How did you feel about all of this?
I don't know how much I really made the story like well known at the time, but it was like I had just come out of playing in a cover band at the time. In the year before, I had been in college for a long time and had spent way too much time just doing college work and not having any life whatsoever. So got out, you know, settled down with my wife immediately thereafter, as it would be, and had no hobbies or anything because I forgot how to have hobbies and all of that, because that's what it ultimately led to. And, you know, she brought to my attention, you need to get some hobbies. So I joined this cover band, and it was
Worst decision she ever had.
yeah, right. Well, I mean, you know, it was one of those things where it was fun playing again because I had played in the 90s and then completely quit to go to college for 7 years. And, you know, it was one of those things where it was good to be playing again, but these guys were not the caliber. I mean, they were all car salesmen and, you know, very good at their jobs, but they just wanted, you know, to play some songs and drink some beers, and, you know, that they didn't want to get any better. And
Full disclosure, Lowell, that's exactly what I wanted to do though when I started this band.
well, you know, that was the thing. I wanted to get them better. I was like, okay, you know, like trying to make a team out of them, you know, okay, guys, let's get better, you know, let's do this, and they just didn't want to have it. And so I remember they ended up kicking me out. And at the time, I mean, it was almost like, you know, you're dating somebody who you think is like, you know, you're doing them a favor or something like that, and then they turn around and dump you, you know. That's what it felt like. And I was just pissed off at the world, you know, and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I knew I liked playing music, but I wanted to come back and I wanted to, do something big, and I wanted to show these guys, and
Did you show them?
Got on Craigslist, I showed them Craigslist.
Yeah.
No, but I mean,
Right. Come hard out of the gate,
He was looking for bands in between sensual massages.
right? On the glory days of Craigslist,
yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah, I knew Craig. No, but
His next band's name was Glory Hole.
anyhow,
Also a cover band.
yeah, right. It was something where when you guys came over, it was immediately apparent that you guys were kind of a different caliber. You know what I'm saying? You seem to be intelligent people that were very quick on everything. And yeah, I had done some homework on this because I wanted to make this work. But on the flip side, there's just this strange thing when you start playing with people that are, when it just clicks, when it's, you can feel it, you know what I mean? And I totally felt that from like moment number one. And, I didn't know what it was about or what we were doing, but I just, wanted to be a part of something big and really wanted to move the needle forward.
I'm not going to lie. That's part of what scared the shit out of me and was exciting at the same time. Was like Corey and I walked into this thing going, okay, no pressure. This is going to be a band that plays at Shay Riley's, rest in peace. Shay Riley's once every couple of
And we're
months.
gonna be super proud to do it.
Yeah,
too.
and we're if we only play to 50 people, we're okay. And then we started writing songs, and it's like, oh shit, we're onto something here.
Yeah.
And it just I say that over and over that it took on a life of its own, and it really did take on a life of its own. And honestly, that's why I have both of you guys here, because that life that it took on, I think impacted all of us tremendously, whether we realize that or not. So the whole time Lowell was talking, I kept thinking about him in the cover band environment, going, "You're gonna play 7 Mary 3 and you're gonna get cumbersome right. We're gonna play it 20, 30 times. I don't care if it takes all fucking night."
Oh yeah. Like,
Do a click track, no less. Yeah, no comment. Okay.
well, I mean, you bring up a good point there, because like when Right Side Impact ended, I think the straw that broke the camel's back on that, it was a couple of different things. Like most of us were, I say most of us because our drummer was a little bit older than us, but most of us were like in our mid-20s and still like we're figuring life out at that point. And we had opened for Blue October or something like that in Lincoln down at Knickerbocker's. And then there was this like discussion that really ran out of control about like doing something with them, support, like being a support act on a leg of a tour or something like that. And it scared the bejesus out of me, because I was like, this band, much as I love these guys, like we're just not there to that point to like make that leap. And, in my life, like starting a career, it's kind of that make or break moment. Like, do you do music for a living, or do you like pursue a career and get a wife and kids and a picket fence and all that kind of stuff? And that's where I kind of quit Right Side, and I was just kind of done with music. And it took me a year or two to kind of realize, like, maybe you can try to do both without,
I think that was kind of your own version of imposter syndrome, though, too.
Oh, totally. I've had imposter syndrome through my whole music endeavors.
Lowell can attest to this, too. Like, you hated everything 5 minutes after you wrote it because you thought it sucked.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so funny. So now, like, 13 years later and, older, wiser, access to professional development stuff, I did this, like, I have no idea how expensive this thing was, but it's like a 360 thing that like where you have like peers and other people evaluating really who you truly are, and you do a little bit of it too. And the number one thing that came back was that I'm like super insecure, and I lack self-confidence. And thinking back, like when you asked us to join this podcast thing, it's absolutely true that I put stuff out there. I get excited for like 5 minutes, and then like I sit and think on it. I take it back to my corner.
Take it back to your corner. That is Corey's
recurring joke.
I was waiting to see how long that would take.
That is Corey's line.
It's absolutely true. Like you dig it for a moment, and then like there's this like regret. Like, well, I don't know if it's good enough, and I don't know. That's been a pervasive thing. Like not just in like Right Side or Aurasing or like my professional career. I mean, even like Civic Minded, which was the band that I did after, that I joined after Aurasing several years later. But like it's a persistent thing, and it's probably like what set me up to like fail ultimately in Aurasing and leave.
So we rounded up the lineup, kind of going back and backtracking a little bit to the story.
We found Tony.
We found Tony.
We had another guitar player.
We added another guitar player, and he was a
sweet house that was way better than
his
man.
dad's house was. I mean, that was a large house.
Yeah, if we were to pick top 3 practice spaces we've ever had, definitely that's in the top 3.
It would be Tony's dad's house, and then Tony's dad's house. Yeah,
Yeah,
top 3.
yeah. I don't know. I kind of liked Ryan's basement. I just couldn't get my sound right down in Ryan's basement.
You guys forget the fact that I bought a house to get out of my apartment so that we could have band practice.
Actually, that was a good. I thought that was a good rehearsal space. I really did.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Lowell.
right back at you.
That.
he doesn't.
Thank you.
You know what's funny?
I overpaid for that house too.
2 years after my divorce, I lived in that house.
Yeah,
with Corey.
Tony lived in that house. Like, I mean,
that was like the revolving door house.
It really was.
Every group of friends has one.
So here we are. We're a 5-piece band. We've shed all the right side impact material. We've got Gunfight. We've got the song The Pulse.
Yep.
In the Name Of. We had a couple of other songs that maybe made it 1 or 2 shows. And then we scrapped them. Mm-hmm.
Song 6.
Song 6.
Never had a name.
Yep.
No, I think that became Untitled that was recorded.
Yep. And then we started playing shows, and we were really strategic about the first set of shows that we took. Do you remember that, Lowell?
I remember. Yeah, I remember. We went to Des Moines to play our first show, and the premise of why the heck would you go and drive 3 hours out of the way to really cultivate your fan base if you were planning on doing that, and
we were gonna hit that Des Moines market hard,
man. It was one of those things where what it really was we were going out there and to see if it actually flew or not, and if the live performance worked great, and if it was just a tragic disaster dumpster fire, not a single person would see it, and we could go all about our own lives, But I remember we just went, and I mean, that was at House of Bricks, if I remember correctly, and there was like a band who was kind of a friend of ours from Minneapolis, right? That was I
think
playing. So. They played it was weird. They had a setup where they had like an afternoon show and then a night show, when going out to shows was still a thing. And they like hung around. I think they headlined the show before us, but waited around to see us play. And they were pretty dumbfounded. We hit the ground not only running but like speed running.
And when we booked our first show in Omaha, we were like, "Hey, everybody, look at our balls!" And we like booked our first show as a headlining show. If you guys remember that.
Oh, yeah.
That was at the Roxbury, and we just put together our own event.
God, I missed that club. That was fun.
It's just we're like, you know what? Nobody's ever heard of us before. Fuck it, we'll headline a show. And we just put together.
I'll give you credit for that, Mike. I mean, I think you did a lot of the orchestrating, and as far as getting things together and everything that makes an event, you were masterful at that.
Oh yeah,
your props are due.
Yeah, no pressure band with a very influential promoter as the
he was like a social influencer before that was a thing, and before everybody was on their phones all the time.
Well, and I'll tell you, like, that was hard, and it was a lot of work, and I don't think I think you both realize that now, but I don't think anybody knew how much work that really was. It's like I would get home from work and I'd be sitting in front of my computer for like 4 hours at a time, scouting shows, putting together lineups, putting together promotional material, and it was tough. And people can say whatever they want. It's like, oh, his voice doesn't fit the sound of the band, or oh, he's an okay singer. But it's fine.
Oh, he's fat.
Yeah, exactly. At the time, I was. But what they can't say.
I was just joking.
But what they can't say is that I was a bad businessman. Like that is my bragging right. Is like I knew the business. And
we got on a lot of shows early on that we probably didn't deserve as a new band,
totally,
because of that cachet, though.
And I was totally happy for that. I was along for the ride. I mean, you guys have been doing this for a while, and here I was kind of just
take
like,
zero credit for it.
But that's the great thing. Like, we did get on a lot of big shows early, and it kind of like it
Elevated the band.
elevated us a ton, and it moved the whole product forward. And it just like it put us in front of more people to where like we were actually cultivating fans, people beyond just being friends of the band. And your average local band just out of the gate is going to be lucky to draw 50 to 100 people at a show, and we're playing these big 200, 300, 400 people shows just because we're, for one, lucky, but two, because of a good sense of strategy, right?
Absolutely.
And that's and that was really important to us. And I think up to that, what was our biggest show in that first year that we were together? You guys remember?
We opened up for Sick Puppies. I remember when they were first a thing. Didn't we do a show with them? Like, it may have been like Sokol Underground or something like that. And I thought Sick Puppies, and then I remember we ended up playing with Sick Puppies opening for them one other time.
Yes.
And
yeah,
they
we did one. It was like we did a smaller Sick Puppies show at Sokol Underground.
Yeah.
And then we did our CD release party, which was about a year into the band. Perfect. About a year into the band, we did our
You
CD
guys are
release
drinking,
party.
so I'm going to drink them. Someone's going
And-
to drink them.
I think our CD release party was probably our biggest show. And then after our CD release party, we did like a Holiday Havoc show at
Yeah.
Sokol
Yeah.
upstairs with Sick Puppies.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know that we did we had a lot of big shows at the Roxbury.
Yeah.
Which there was a show with I guess Emphatic put us on one show that was
Yeah,
a pretty
it was
good
their
show.
CD release party.
Yeah, that was a really good time.
That was a big one too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Despite the fact that we needed to, allow them to have their stage set up, but Roxbury at least had a big enough stage. We could figure that out. But yeah, that was probably one of the most memorable shows for me.
One of the things we haven't touched on yet was kind of the immediate camaraderie within the band. Like, didn't it kind of seem like we went from like not knowing each other to being everybody's best friend like overnight?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, next thing you know,
Maybe for you guys. No.
next thing you know, like Tony's living with you.
Right. Well, and it almost didn't happen because the two of you got into a fight like 3 weeks in.
Look into my eyes.
Oh,
Look
God.
into my eyes.
Like,
and I was like, I was like, Corey, Tony, Matt. Like, it's either him or me.
I seem to remember this. and
Mike
I
and his
don't.
rare instance of drama in the band. room.
Rare instance. Dick.
I don't even remember what it was about, but I just remember, and I think that bit came from the fact of the matter, when I had been in bands previously, I was always doing the band leader stuff, making sure everybody was sticking to things. And that was also the, very much the room in band space that you were used to populating as well.
Right.
And it was like one of those things where we had a disagreement, and it was about something minor, but it ended up snowballing, and I remember we had... Yeah, it was a big standoffish type moment. You go this way. No, I'm going this way. No, you go this way. And I just remember thinking in my mind that, there's enough tasks for everybody. You know what I mean? And if this is already what he does, and this is already what he has down, even though it would be the vengeful, easy thing to say, fuck you, I'm doing this.
Right.
The smart play would be let him do this and then find something else, to become the master of.
Well, and I think that's the thing. Like, every creative endeavor has its kind of growing pains. And I do think that there was a period of time where everybody was kind of establishing their roles.
Yeah.
To a certain degree. Like Corey was kind of the songwriter.
Definitely.
You were the heartbeat of the band, but you were also a disciplinarian. Like, the thing that caused our clashes, because of very similar personality traits that you and I have.
For sure.
Like, that you kind of held the disciplinarian end of it. I was the business face of the band, and I was also kind of the arranger. Like, Corey would bring the song, the song to the group, and I would help arrange it into place. Our bass player was kind of the image of the band, And then you had Tony. He did.
Silence covers the crowd.
Shout out, Tony.
That's not fair.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding, Tony.
Tony
had the
Tony
practice
is
space. Come on,
and
Tony
was
the
a
practice
good
space.
dude. Like,
So yeah, Tony, and actually we'll touch briefly on Tony, how kind of Tony had to shift into the Corey role whenever after Corey left and we started doing the second album run.
Tony's a much better guitar player than I am. Like he's much more technical and he's much more like creative. Like I can go down I can be good out of the gate and come up with like a unified like suite of ideas, but like Tony did a really nice job of playing off of that, which not a lot of, you know, you have that chemistry between like songwriters that goes on beyond like the band, and Tony did a really nice job of like filling out that role. So
well, I always
he doesn't
remember,
get enough credit.
I always remember that being the problem with you, and I mean that's the unspoken role of everybody in the band aside from you, Corey, is that you'd come out with this amazing material, and then immediately after giving a taste of it to us, you know, be like, no, I'm gonna take this back to my corner, you know, and we'd all be like, no, what do you got there, you know, you got a recording of that, you got, you know,
well then
let's keep
you
it
guys
out
would
in
get your
band
grimy,
space, you know,
grimy mitts on it, and I'd be like, I don't like it anymore. I want to take it back.
Yeah, pretty much.
and he'd take it back to his corner. He's got so much in his corner.
If you
No,
haven't,
to back up real quick, like you guys were talking about your early scuffles. I'll never forget when, well, your wife called me and said that you were out for a run, and you guys were squabbling at the time. And your wife called and said you were out for a run and you had a seizure for your diabetes. But he's diabetic and he had a thing. He fell down, like he had a seizure. And the way that like I called Mike immediately afterwards and was like, hey, I didn't know this about Lowell. Did you know this about Lowell? He's like, no, I had no idea. But like the amount of concern, like that's where I feel like we gelled.
So we had a CD release show, and it was at the Roxbury, and that was one of my great memories because we went out and we just flyered the shit. We had like 5,000 flyers, like hand-bill flyers, back when flyers were a thing, and handed these out to everybody. I mean, we went for like a month, 2 months ahead of time, handed them out to everybody everywhere. The entire city was, you know, just covered in like 2 inches of Aurasing flyers. Okay. And so the big night came and we're like, oh my God, is it going to work? Oh my God, is it going to work? It was freaking amazing. Okay. And, you know, I invited everybody. I was very much of the philosophy at the time, you know, you get everybody there, I mean, that's more people through the door, looks bigger, get your brothers, you know, get your relatives, et cetera, et cetera. So I asked my parents, you know, hey, you know, you should come out, you know, you should totally do this.
You can see a lot.
You should totally come out. And yeah, Mike, like halfway through the set, he's like, hey, this is Lowell. He's our drummer. He's got diabetes. No, this is the greatest part. So here I am, like I think I was 30 or something at the time. You know, I well-established professional on my own, 2 feet at the time. You know, and I'm having this talk with my folks after the show. You know, where they're asking me, do they make fun of you? And I'm like, no, Mom, it's not like that. You know, you don't get it. Oh, okay. We worry about you sometimes. You know.
It's always good to have Mom and Pa looking out for you.
Oh, definitely.
you know, you did touch on that, like how we kind of gelled together, and you know, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because it's not our story to tell. But one thing that is interesting about our CD release party was that Tony's dad passed away that day. And I don't know if you guys remember that or not, but that was the day Tony's dad passed away. Was the day of our CD release party.
I don't. How did I forget that? How did?
Yeah,
Did I?
And he none of us would have thought anything different if Tony had just said, "Guys, I can't do this night." But he went out and he just played it like a champ. And you know, I talked to him after the fact, and he said, you know, he goes, "I just wanted to make my dad proud." You know, it was a big heartfelt thing for him, and I think it was a big statement for, you know, how we were as a brotherhood at that time. Mm-hmm. You know, I
think like, you know, thinking about people listening to this podcast, you know, they're like, wow, they're like really, like, they're basically playing "Glory Days" by Bruce Springsteen back in the background. But like, I think that underscores like anybody that's like been in a band or like taken on that creative effort kind of appreciates the bonds that people form together. And like, it doesn't matter like the name of our band or the songs or like that stuff. It's the friendships that were formed in the middle of it.
Right.
that like really matter and really like shape, you know, that period of your life. I was 25 when that band started, you know, still super impressionable, but you know, it's just one of those things that regardless of, you know, where you come from, if you've been fortunate enough to do that stuff and like get out of the garage and play some shows and record something and put some, you know, go put handbills on a bunch of cars and set off a few alarms in the process.
More than you know. Yeah, when car alarms are still a thing too. Yeah.
It sticks with you.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, that's why the three of us are here today. You know,
For sure.
But I mean, it's got its ugly side too, and I think we would be remiss to not talk about that to some degree. So here we were. You know, we're about a year plus into Aurasing. We have the CD release party. It does well. We've gone through a lot of personal stuff together. I do think that was kind of one of the downward turns to Aurasing. Some of the things that kind of brought us together were also some of the things that might have kind of made things hard for us. We were having a fair amount of success and it was going to our heads to some degree. And I will be the first to own that.
Oh, absolutely. I would agree with that.
Oh, and that's kind of, you know, in mentally prepping for this and trying to get back in the mindset of 2007, you know, and everything looking like Affliction t-shirts and flat bill caps and smelling like Axe body spray, you know, but, you know.
While we're all wearing Billabong.
right. But I mean, in all seriousness, that's kind of how I saw this whole thing, is it came together all about the music. And then, you know, somewhere along the line, it became all about lifestyle, you know, and that wasn't true to the core as far as, you know, fundamental, basal level mission statements, you know, and
right.
That's why it felt fake, you know.
Right, absolutely. Absolutely. And honestly, I don't think we were the only band that happened to.
Oh, of course not. Yeah.
There was a handful of bands that were kind of doing similar things to us. As a matter of fact, we all kind of got lumped together and made fun of on one of the local message boards as all the sound-alike bands that are always playing together. When the fact of the matter is just none of us were afraid to work with one another or shoulder a fair amount of that work.
Those were all the bands that were actually out promoting stuff.
Right, absolutely.
You know? Like,
Well, it's easy to be a hater to play in front of 5 people, you know, and that's the bottom line, you know.
But there got to be a point where even those bands, the bands that we were working with, kind of started backbiting each other a little bit and kind of, you know, again, I can't take credit for this. I give credit to Michael Chandler, who is a fighter now with the UFC, just signed in the past 2 weeks. He was on a podcast and he was talking about how he was with Bellator and he just signed with UFC, but he's already getting pushed into the main event picture. So there's a lot of people that are pissed off because this guy's in the main event picture. So you take that and you apply it to local bands, and the point he made was a philosophical point where it's the scarcity mindset versus the abundance mindset. And the scarcity mindset says, you know, because you're winning, nobody else can win. There's not enough to go around. So you posture based on the scarcity, and relationships suffer as the sacrifice to that. Like, you can't let anybody else succeed. It's like the Highlander mentality. There can be only one.
you like push everybody else down to make sure that there's only one shining star.
Absolutely, absolutely. And whereas there's the abundance mindset where there's plenty for everybody. You know, that shows success, money, friends. You know, your success doesn't diminish somebody else's.
I would say that's not keeping the scene alive. That's keeping like one band alive.
What was your favorite and most memorable thing about that first album cycle? Or that first couple of years?
Oh, you mean like recording the album, or just like having the album out, or
boy,
just
that's a podcast in and of itself.
Yeah,
That wasn't fun.
My favorite Aurasing story is still pretty new. Like, I don't think we had the album out yet. So can I tell this story? Like, we go up to Minneapolis It's the Minneapolis.
I know where this story's going. Yeah.
I'm just gonna focus on one part of it. You guys can jump in with other parts because it was a very.
Hey, this is officially
trip-
team.
it was
This
a
is
trip
Team
that
Omelet.
Brought us together.
This is Team Omelet right
This
here.
is- yeah. Yeah. Team Omelet versus Team Sandwich.
The other two individuals in our band, we went. and played-
Tell that story real quick.
Okay, so we went up to Minneapolis to play. We were going to play. There's 2 shows, right? It was like a 2-night tour.
Yeah.
And anyhow, there was 3 of us that went up in one car, and we demanded to go to like Village Inn, I think it was, or something like that, get omelets. And the other 2 guys in the band, I don't know if they were just like scraping by to live or what, but they brought sandwiches and we're eating in the car.
Sat out in the parking lot. Yeah.
We were waving, and so
That's where we learned that you put like twice as much ketchup as a normal person would on an omelet.
That's what it was, huh? Yeah.
I mean, anyway,
my.
it's kind of a stupid story, a stupid road trip story. But so we got up and play at was it the Fine Line?
Yes.
In Minneapolis, and super awesome show. Like I knew it was gonna go great when like the sound guy like made fun of me like during our sound check. He's like, "Oh, he's got a triple rectifier. Look at this guy. Watch out for the badass." I'm like, "Oh, awesome." Like, yeah, I just bought it too, dude. It's awesome. No, it wasn't. But anyways, so we played the show, and like we're playing with some friends up there that Mike and I had met like back in the Right Side Impact days, and so like it was old friends. Super fun night. Like they had a green room, and it was packed with beer.
Oh,
and
yeah.
So we just got ripped, and so the band we were playing with, like they were called the Payback.
No, it was Throw the Fight.
Did
Yeah,
they
I
just
think
change it?
yeah,
They had quit like Payback, and it was like one of their first shows.
No,
right?
it was like James used to sing for the Payback, and then he became the new singer of Throw the Fight.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because there was like both of those bands.
Yeah.
And then James is from England,
And his whole family
and
was
his whole
in town.
family was there,
And their last name is
Clark.
And their last name is Clark.
So like you're part of the family. So like I mean, and you're like going in and out of like your regular screeching voice and an English accent all night with like these guys.
Dude, I had a $250 credit card tab
Yeah.
because we were doing Clark family shots.
All of us did. And God bless your heart, Lowell. You were our DD for the night, like to make sure we
Yeah.
got back to the hotel room.
I do remember that.
And we're loading up, and you're like, your anal retentive self. Like, do you have we have all the amps, we have all the guitars, we have all the drums, we have all this stuff. Like, yep, we're good. Like, we're just like burping our way like to load out at the end of the night. And you got the cymbals. Yep, I got the cymbals. Now, shit, we forgot the cymbals. We don't find out until we get all the way back home from Minneapolis, and we're like unloading it. Like, I think I had bought the house, and we had like the practice space, and sure as shit, like you had just spent like what $2,000 on cymbals.
It was $2,300 worth of cymbals that I left up in Minneapolis.
Well, yeah, you left up there,
Well,
right? That wasn't the way you thought of it.
I still don't to this day let anybody help me move my drum stuff. I mean,
Yeah, lesson
it's
learned, right?
well, it's one of those things where I count everything. I mean, I should have 8 stands with me. I should have
Oh my God,
5
like,
cases.
We got them back though. Like we didn't even have to
Hey,
drive up to get them. Like they shipped them to us.
You got them back, and I still have that shipping tag on my cymbals case these days.
Oh, good.
I
I
go.
want to see that sometime. That's super cool.
It's on there. There's quite a few. Yeah, things.
But we were supposed to go to Wisconsin for
Yeah,
some
the
reason.
second night, and then some stuff came up, and we ended up driving back to Omaha.
Didn't we break our axle or like?
There was some issue we were having either with the trailer or with Tony's truck that I think we were we were all afraid that if we got to Wisconsin, we'd be eating cheese for a week, just because we wouldn't be able to make it back.
The Packers were playing.
Oh, don't you know?
Don't
You know what's funny? Like I've probably got 5 or 6 stories from that one trip.
We
Yeah.
could go get some lake fish.
I remember crawling
at that
into
tomorrow.
the bed with you at the hotel and
I
trying to
remember this
snuggle
too.
up with you,
Yep.
and you put your bare ass on my chest
Yep.
as a way to prank me.
I farted.
Yeah,
Yep.
I
And I
remember this.
remember the bass player and I going to Taco Bell and walking through the drive-thru, and some stuff happening that I probably, not my proudest moment, but I probably should have been arrested for.
That whole trip was not our proudest.
Oh my gosh! Like there were things that happened that we could definitely talk about off air sometime.
What was the most disappointing moment? I'm just curious.
My symbols. My symbols were the most.
Honestly,
you got them back.
I know,
Like,
but
Jesus.
still, man.
Hindsight, I think it's the fidelity of the first album.
Oh,
Totally,
definitely.
totally
We were
agree.
talking about that
That's,
outside.
Close second would be who is the band that had the they're from Seattle. I was super stoked that we were playing with
Oh,
them.
Classic Crime.
Classic Crime.
Oh yeah.
I actually connected with the guitar player because I was gonna like get his like traveling rig or something. Like I don't know, it was a guitar band thing for like gear thing for another discussion. But those guys were kind of assholes.
Yeah.
Like I was super disappointed, and who knows what was happening in the time. Like for them, like maybe it was just like an off night. But like I was super looking forward to that night playing with those guys because I thought I was really digging what they were about at the time. Super disappointed.
One of my favorite shows that we played was when we played with Adler's Appetite. That was Steven Adler's Guns N' Roses
I
tribute
damn near got
band.
fired for that show.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
So, like, okay, well, not because we played the show. Like, Steven Adler was super cool.
Yeah, he
super
was
nice.
awesome.
And do you remember that there were, like, this is in the middle of, like, you know, a lot of, like, conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan, like, at that time.
Right.
That was still pretty hot and heavy. There were a couple of Navy guys, seamen, that were they were on shore leave, and they had come,
Mermen. They were mermen. All right.
they came to the Roxbury to like see that show, and like so like you and I were just like at the bar randomly talking to them, and like so we're like and we struck up a conversation like just a quick friendship, and they were down to like do shots. So you and I like were going toe to toe with them. Because they were buying, and then like I think we started buying for some reason. Anyways, the next day I go to work, and I had like a series of like some pretty important meetings, and I was pretty red-eyed. And I will never forget like my boss Tarana looked at me like on this specific staircase at my work, and she said, like, you need to like figure out like right now if you want to be like a rock and roll guy or you want to be like a professional career guy. And like that stuck with me and it still sticks with me. Like
I'm kind of wondering if that doesn't kind of help with the next segment.
it totally does.
I totally want to elaborate on this Adler's Appetite show though, because I just told this story.
'Cause you had fun too.
Well, I did have a decent time, you know, but no, I just told this story last week, and you know, the thing that was so funny about that is we went to go see, you know, Mike insisted on getting on the show because he wanted to see Steven Adler, and you know, we're all GNR fans, but you know, an opportunity to open for the band for the guy that did too many drugs for Guns N' Roses, you know? I mean,
fun fact, I was on a no, I'm not going to tell that story. That's throwing my wife.
So
she didn't know who, like, she doesn't really know who Guns N' Roses are. So.
Corey, come on, man. Anyhow, so they came out.
He was also on Celebrity Rehab at that time.
He was on Celebrity Rehab, and remember, like, Chips Enough from Enough was with them playing bass for him.
Yeah.
And the funniest thing about this is they had like the stage manager that came out, and they went and they got like this velvet rope setup, you know, and they went on the side of the Roxbury stage and they did like this little
where the
square.
pool table's located.
They did this little square that was like a 2x2 sectioned off area. You know, sectioned off by velvet rope, and the four of them stood in this comically small 2x2 space.
I totally remember that.
All doing the Jesus plus one, you know, everybody looking off in a different direction, you know, and just stood there like it was cool while the rest of us were like, wait, is this for real? Is this like a comedy act? Are we being recorded here? Or
hey, hold my drink while I go check and see where this thing is at. Yeah,
it was the most comically hilarious thing I've ever seen in my entire
Steven
life.
Adler was super cool that night.
Yeah, he took pictures with everybody. He talked to everybody, and it's just
and he was like in a like. Like he's
was
had
in a
like
good
what,
spot.
like back problems and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like no, he was on point and he rocked it.
I mean, he played on my most favorite album of all time. So it's like,
yeah, absolutely.
It was a good opportunity. 2010, we had been running off the fumes of that first CD for a little over a year, almost a year and a half. We're kind of talking about January, February 2010. There were some life changes happening with you where you were kind of leaning towards making that decision, career guy or rock and roll guy. Mm-hmm. And I think it was kind of what it boiled down to was, I think it was disguised as a discussion about whether or not we should order t-shirts or more merch. But it ended up becoming
Clever girl.
Yeah, it kind of ended up becoming your exit from the band. So where was your headspace at that time? And what led you to that decision?
So you're probably right that like it started as a discussion at like Buffalo Wild Wings or something like that about like reordering t-shirts.
General place of gathering.
Yes, general place of gathering. And, I hadn't really shared with you guys, but like my professional career was really starting to take off a bit, and it almost felt like deja vu of like Right Side Impact, where I was really having a hard time balancing everything with like what was happening in my personal life, and then probably the thing that I was a little bit like more sheepish about was I just wasn't really feeling where like the music was going at the time, and wasn't quite sure how to tell such close friends where my thoughts were. So there was so much energy and momentum behind the band that I felt like it was probably time for me, before we ordered more t-shirts, to like just have an honest conversation with you guys about like where my life was at. Like I thought that within the next couple of years I'd be married and starting a family and stuff like that. Of course that didn't come to fruition for me, but I kind of blew up a little bit on what life was dealing with me at the time, and it's what happened with me.
So what about from your perspective?
It was one of those things where I saw both sides of this, I also have a professional career, but at the time there was the writing on the wall that there really isn't a lot of money in music, and nobody was going to be doing this for a full-time job. So the way I was seeing this was a fun, seemingly positive thing to do with one's time. At the time I didn't have kids, had enough free time to do this. It seemed like one of those things where I was thinking to myself, well, if I can do it, why can't you do it? But at the same time, it was already one of those things where I had already crossed some of those bridges that you were appearing to cross before this band even became a thing.
Sure.
So that was like, it was a, why can't you do it? But then also recognizing that it's kind of an invalid argument. You know what I mean? That it wasn't an argument at all. It was one of those things where I didn't want to see it happen. I mean, that's the bottom line. Some of this may have got disguised in anger, but man, I didn't want to see, the band breaking up literally and figuratively. I mean, this was one of those things where we were having a good time, and why be a buzzkill? You know what I mean? And yeah. I think that's kind of what seeded the rest of the years of this, is that kind of mantra, that why things are going good, why be a buzzkill? And even though I think the quality of the things that we put out were good, and I made other connections with other guitarists that ended up filling your role down the road, but it was never the same. I mean, truth be told.
Oh, absolutely. We're not here for a long time, but we're here for a good time.
Yeah.
You guys talk about things like writing on the wall. I think about early 2010, it was really clear and apparent to me, without me ever admitting it, that my marriage was pretty much over, and it had nothing to do with the band, but the band was kind of fulfilling what I wasn't getting out of my relationship at the time. Now, I had by that point in time, I had 2 beautiful children, but I still needed something for me. So it became kind of like an obsession. So like a third child, or almost like a replacement for the fulfillment I wasn't getting out of my partner at that point in time. So I probably did take it a lot more personally at the time than I probably should have. In hindsight, we all have the power of hindsight now, that it was hard. And you were right. Like, the fidelity of the music that came after fidelity wise was probably better.
Yeah.
The songwriting quality, it just depends on what day of the week it is. You listen to it, whether it was better or worse or indifferent, or it maintained. I think it's fair to say that it maintained. But it was definitely hard. I also think that we were riding on our own egos quite a bit. Good, bad, ugly, otherwise.
Well, like, generally, I think that from that first batch of songs, after we had gelled a bit, like, the band really started going off in a different direction. I know that it was kind of more of this, like, Atreyu-ish direction, or, any number of, more metalcore, thrashy kind of stuff, a lot more like, screams and things like that.
It was legitimately screamo. It went from hardcore emo to screamo.
Yeah, exactly. And like that, neither of those were really like my intention, like with the like original vision of the band.
I remember Seosin kind of being like what you wanted to be. You know what I mean? That I seem to remember getting that explanation from you.
Yeah. And that's probably why I
sweet.
started like taking things like back to my corner, because like I just didn't like the direction that things were going. At the same time, I mentioned before, like professional career started taking off, and we had a pretty regimented schedule. I mean, it was like being part of like a very competitive like rec team.
Yeah. Well, practice 3 days a week, and it was like 4 hours on one day and 2 hours for. And these weren't like just getting all tuned and everything and dicking around. It was like,
you didn't bring your case of beer over and drink.
Yeah. Because you'd be off and you'd be called on it,
Yeah, exactly. And so I think it was like that marriage of those two things where at some point I kind of lost what we were trying to do, like the mission statement of the band. Certainly enjoying all the success of the band. So, I mean, it's kind of foolhardy to say that. Where I thought life was supposed to take me, it certainly didn't end up going that way, and I'm forever grateful for that. But like it was time for me to bow out. Like end on a high note. I do remember that last show. It was another CD release show for another band.
Yeah,
and it was awesome. Like I felt like we played our best show, and I was like, shit. Like maybe I'm quitting at the wrong time, but. Life moves on.
There was like we could get anecdotal about every single show we played because I remember that show vividly too.
We used to record our shows and nitpick ourselves,
critique one another. Yeah.
Part of the reason why we did a lot better, but
going back to the first album cycle, and I just want to touch on this a bit. Do you guys remember when we first started? Like, we kind of had this very disciplined thing that we didn't drink until after we were done playing. We didn't drink at practice. We were, like, really, really structured. And then we started to kind of do well, and then it went from, like, well, we don't drink to, like, we can't
You can't
play.
have more than 3 drinks before we play.
Or we can't play at all unless we're half buzzed or sloshed,
Yeah.
Well, then I also remember, for a good long while there, I mean, it was more drama than it was worth. Like, we'd get done playing, and somebody was pissed off all the time. Like, we put in all that work, like, week in and week out. And then,
somebody is my nickname.
Well, it was mostly you, but it was a lot of times it was me, like, pissed off that this guy completely messed up, or their gear wasn't in check.
And I think going on with that, I mean, those were expectations that we set for ourselves. You know what I mean? And that's
Yep.
It's nice to set high expectations, and I like doing that at my day job, and I like doing that for recreationally. Putting high expectations on
For
yourself,
a no pressure band.
yeah, can only lead to disappointment. At very best, if you do perfectly, you're only going to be adequately satisfied. You know?
I'll say, like, okay, so a bone of contention that I always had was that, like, so Gunfight was our first song. Cursing Bird, I found.
Cursing Bird.
I don't know, like, why that was funny at the time.
my
but
God, that
I
was
thought it was hilarious. So super lame.
Working title, yes.
Working title, Cursing Bird.
I think we had some sort of He-Man reference for
Yeah, I mean, there was
what
like,
you get. It was like Stratos or something along those lines.
I found that email too.
Yeah.
Stratos. And like, bits of Panther or something like that. But like, I just always had an issue. Like, I liked that song, but I always had an issue with like it being called Gunfight and like what that represented. Like in my personal life, I was like, I'd never be in a gunfight or like a knife fight I lost like what the tone that you were trying to set with it, Mike. Like, full respect for like all your lyrics. Like, I think you're really good at a lot of that stuff, but like I always cringed when we played that song because like this is so not me. Like, I'm not a. And I took it too literal. Like,
I took it always as like a metaphorical fight, fight.
Everything.
Fight.
Oh, sure.
But the funny thing, that's been out over the course of the last 10, 13 years on runs, and it comes.
It's never come back to hurt me.
And well, no,
Say that.
I'll be out on a long run or something like that, and shuffle on my iPhone comes up, and it's an Aurasing song, and I will listen to these songs and like, that's not too bad. But the thing that sticks out to me every time is, oh shit, this was all about Mike's ex-wife. This, like, at the time, I took it as a very metaphorical, like just like a step back and it's us against the world type thing, which you did a very masterful job, like kind of filling it in for people to paint their own life on top of it. You know what I mean? But like when I hear it now, I mean, it's like blatantly obvious.
I think I'm not going to say that you're wrong. I'm not going to say that you're right either. I think, honestly, my whole life story aside, like, I've always kind of been scrappy guy backed into a corner having to fight his way out.
Yeah.
So, like, that is where I wrote a lot of my... It's just wherever my conflict was at that point in time. Yeah. So if it was a fight with my ex-wife, sure, maybe I wrote a song about a fight with my ex-wife. If it was a fight with some other guy from some other random local band, yeah, I wrote a song about...
Ooh, what song is that?
Maybe I wrote a song about that. Or maybe I got pissed off at one of you guys and somebody was a little condescending about a lyric I wrote, and I said, you're condescending verbal gestures. Maybe that was about one of you guys.
Maybe.
I mean, that's
buy the album, find out.
Yeah. You know what?
We still have like
I still have them in my basement. Yeah.
Spoiler alert, it's not you.
It's probably me.
Really? I totally thought that was all about me. Yeah.
I was pretty condescending back in the day.
Yeah,
Still
like,
am.
Oh yeah.
Well, I was gonna say that's like my superpower.
Writing with Corey, like, it could be tough sometimes, because he was not only critical of himself, he would kind of throw out these passive aggressive comments that would just like boil under my skin. Sometimes.
Give us an example.
I don't remember them.
Well, you had two modes when it came to creative mode, Mike.
Hey,
you had nothing hurts. You had nothing hurts me mode, and you had everything hurts me mode, and there was nothing in between. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. That's who I was at that point in time.
That's also what fueled like the creative process. Like, so if it wasn't Mike and Lowell arguing, it was Mike and me arguing, or it was like Tony pissed off at Lowell, or it was like our bass player pissed off at Mike for telling him what to do. And like, I mean, it was a weird dynamic where all of us, there was a lot of like pushing and shoving in that band, but at the end of the day, like we had a lot of fun.
Yeah,
but there was always something boiling.
Well, I think we were all going for a greater good, and I mean,
Yeah.
Pushing each other.
Well, yeah, and we all had high expectations for one another and high expectations for the project. I mean, if you would have,
That's what actually like formed the friendships, though. Was like
Well-
you could get past it. You didn't just like
Exactly.
like take your ball and go home.
yeah, exactly, totally. I agree.
Yeah. So Corey makes his exit. That CD release party was the last show he played. We put together a second lineup of the band,
Yeah,
and we worked fast.
yeah.
I have a question. Like, how did you like? So you guys were like finding Adam. Adam was like the replacement for me, right?
Yes.
Where did you find him? 'Cause he was
He
really
had-
good.
He had played in a band with our bass player back in their college days.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And he came in and he played the riff for the song that became Long Kiss Goodnight at our rehearsal. And I, like, almost immediately wrote something to it.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, this is the guy. This is the guy. And we had auditioned 3 or 4 other guys.
Yeah, and there were some pretty bad auditions. I mean,
But there was
Oh yeah, you gotta go through all that.
and the sad thing is, they're all still Facebook friends of mine. I'm like one of those guys who doesn't
Wah,
like
wah.
to leave. Like if you see some of these little bitches whining all the time, you just want to, I don't know, smack them
But-
through the screen.
But the thing is like there was another guy, I don't remember his name, and you don't need to fill in the blank on it, but he was pretty good. It's just he didn't fit the image or the social stratosphere of the band. He was
Too
more of a
hot?
metal guy.
Too hot.
No, he was more of a metal guy. And I just we could talk offline about
Yeah.
that, but Corey left in February. We were in Arc Studios by July for that second EP. I
It
think
was quick. I
it was
remember
like
that.
4 or 5 months, because the thing is Corey has 3 songwriting credits on our second album.
At least.
Well,
I remember being really pissed off and bitter about that.
I remember you being bitter, and I remember you saying things like, "Oh, well, that's crap. That sounds like crap." You guys,
I was really disappointed with like how some of the songs ended up turning out.
yeah. Well, that's a fair criticism, and not. I mean,
The fidelity's way better.
the fidelity's way better, but I just think this came back to, I think the first album. I really do think that would have been amazing if we spent more money and spent more
yeah,
time.
absolutely.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And nobody's gonna disagree with that. Like I was.
I think the material on that album was better.
Yep.
The second album sounds way better.
Yep. Yep.
Oh no, I think the second album, like, I think there's an evolution with it. Like, like I said, like the Atreyu-ish. Like,
Yeah.
It got more like metal core. Like I don't know. I wouldn't call Aurasing a metal band by any means.
like metalcore.
Metalcore. Yeah. Like I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know what the technical term is
Sure.
for it. Like tougher.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
Tougher guys. But like there were some things that like in there, like I thought I was doing some. I went through a lull towards the end of writing on the first album, and I really wanted to see those projects to fruition, and disappointed that I wasn't a part of it. But I also totally understood, because like it was a conscious decision to like tell you guys, find another guy, and not just like, hey, break it off, even though that's what I wanted to say, and it was like way too important to you guys to keep moving. Whereas Right Side, it was way easier to just say like, I'm leaving, but hey, also Mike, you should probably break this off.
Yeah. And honestly, I think if I had been in the headspace I ended up at about a year and a half later, because the band only went another year and a half after you left, that it probably would have ended. And we'll get to that here in a moment. But we recorded at Arc Studios. Second album, The Intervention.
Yeah.
I personally think the lyricism on The Intervention was a bit more elevated than it was on the first album.
Totally agree.
My lyrics were better, but I do agree with you that the first album is actually better material. It's a weird construct. My vocal performance on the first album sucked. And it's because I was trying to make everybody happy that I was spending more time playing engineer than I was with my own takes and my own tracks.
I remember that, because that was a big struggle between like getting the guitar mix just right and getting like the drum sound just right. Like you spent more time on that than
my
else.
own shit.
And then we kind of ran out of time and ran out of money. It was like, well, this is what it is.
Well, that's what happens with every album, though. I mean, I was part of a project after Aurasing where we finally just had to, take the project out of the dude's hand and say, okay, look, I know you can fidget with this for years and years on end. It's never going to be perfect because your vision of perfect...
Chinese democracy here.
Right.
Your vision of perfect is an ever-moving target. You just need to take it right here and let's release this, And it wasn't quite like that, but, I agree with every bit of this. But, don't downgrade yourself on this one, Mike.
Oh, I'm not.
But you go back and listen to the
on Intervention, right?
Yes.
What I was going to say is you go back and listen to the Right Side Impact album. I think, the first Arsing album, the vocal performance was way stronger.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with that, but we also took the cheap route on the Right Side Impact album, though, too. And I think that's... It does come down to money to a certain extent. And when you can spend more time, recording vocal takes, the thing about the Intervention is we did all the vocal takes on our own time, but everything else was done in a professional studio. So that's why that was the big difference between the first two albums as far as, context goes.
Well, and for I remember being at Warehouse, was it Warehouse?
Yeah, Warehouse.
Recorded the first one, and Jim Homan was engineering that one. He's like, you and Tony, your guitar, the way you guys pick your guitars are totally different. It's this, it's
right.
like a rudder in the water, because he was a second ahead and I was a second behind, and to get that together and listening to it once fucking Jim Homan.
Yeah, once he pointed it out.
Jim Homan is amazing, by the way. That's all I'm going to say about
What's that?
I said Jim Homan is amazing, by the way.
Yeah, he engineered the second album, too.
I dig the dude. Don't get me wrong.
Truly talented.
But he's doing is saying what's there.
Yeah.
And you listen to it and it's just a muddy mess.
Yeah.
And he did everything he could, with the budget we provided him to.
Well, and in fairness to him, he didn't finish the first album.
But he's not playing it either.
No, he recorded the raw tracks. We took the raw tracks of the first album back to our buddy's basement studio. Our buddy was in a little bit over his head as far as what his talent capacity was to be an engineer.
At the time.
To the point where the singer of the band that is recording the album is doing more of the engineering than the actual engineer at that point.
And the artwork and the t-shirts.
And the t-shirts and all. But, neither here nor there, going to the Intervention, I would say we put just as much effort, if not more effort, into promoting the Intervention. And then it didn't have the same impact that the first album did. If you remember that.
I just, I'm trying to remember what the actual CD release, where that was at and what it was.
It was at the waiting room, and we had a freak snowstorm. It was in early November, and it was it had snowed for we'd gotten 6 inches of snow in a 2 or 3 hour point of time, and then it stopped. And
the night of?
Yes.
Well, I just feel I don't know, there wasn't the newness factor anymore. You know what I mean?
Yes, and that's important to note too.
At first it was kind of a meteoric rise, and you can only keep that going for so long before you need something totally new and meteoric. And this was kind of still paint by numbers, in its own very complex way.
I mean, you guys had new material,
but we were still hustling the same. It was the same. It was the same thing.
Yeah, I've got an anecdote about that, and it's my analogy about Aurasing at large is like a bad hand of Cards Against Humanity. You guys ever play Cards Against Humanity?
Never heard of it. No, I'm just joking.
You guys ever play that
absolutely.
game? Yeah. So you get these cards, right? And you're looking at your first 10 cards and you're like, okay, I only got 4 cards that are really good. I got 6 okay cards, but I got 4 cards. So I need to space these 4 cards throughout the game so I can play the strategy and win, right?
You keep holding your best cards back.
No, but the thing with Aurasing, instead of holding our best cards back, we played all of our... we played our Bukkake card in the second round, bro. And that's the best card in the deck. Yeah, we played our Bukkake card in the second round, and it's just so we were struggling in those later times. It's okay, everybody's seen us pull this trick before.
Yeah.
And it's everybody's seen us do this. And, and the weird thing is some of the other bands we were playing with at the time got keen to our strategies too.
Oh, yeah.
And they were using our strategies on us. Mm-hmm. So it made booking incredibly difficult.
Yeah. Yeah.
Incredibly difficult.
How often were you guys playing at that point?
So that's the weird part. It was feast or famine. We were playing either once every 6 weeks or...
That was like the golden rule.
The golden rule is once every 6 weeks. But we had a few spots in time where we hadn't played in 2 or 3 months. And then a spot in time towards the end of Adam's run where it seemed like we were fucking playing every week. Like there were a bunch of shows that came at us all at once, I'd say in early 2011. That's when we did the Millard South tribute and a couple of other shows. And we opened up for Hawthorne Heights.
Yeah.
And they were all within weeks of each other. So it was just like, it diminished the whole event factor that the band was good at.
Yeah. I don't know. I felt towards the end, I mean, I agree with all these analogies, but it just had run out of steam, and it was more about keeping the party going than it was what the party was made.
Absolutely.
To begin with.
Okay, so how long did you guys write? Like, did you guys do another album after Intervention? I feel really terrible asking.
Yeah, no.
Come on, Corey.
We did a single, and it was called "The Deepest Cut." And honestly, as far as
I really dug that one.
Yeah, I was going to say, as far as fidelity, and honestly, if I were to use one song as the calling card for Aurasing, post, I would say that would probably be up there.
Is that the one that's like the deepest part of me?
Yeah. Yep.
Like that.
Yep.
Just like
James Hetfield. but
the deepest part of me.
And so Adam left in April or May, and then we brought Ryan on.
Yeah.
Okay. As the guy that left, why did Adam leave? I have to ask that question.
He was going to PA school.
Yeah.
He just got into PA school.
Okay.
And after having gone through a professional program and knowing that it takes 40 hours a week of, doing what is essentially homework just to know your shit to be up there, he and I both knew that there was any kind of hobby other than just intensely sticking your head in the books, I mean,
as a guy that left the band previously, I can understand that.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I didn't leave for PA school by any means.
And I think even though every once in a while we send him Christmas cards and everything, I think he's still
good.
Yeah, right.
He's doing great. He's a PA now. I hope.
I think he's doing well. We never get him returned, so I don't know, Adam. If you're hearing this, please reach out sometime. And I don't know. He was a good dude. I've got nothing but complimentary things to say about him.
Lowell $7.
In case you did not hear that, $7
plus interest.
But yeah, so Adam left kind of, I think, late that spring, and then we brought Ryan on, and we kind of had a whole summer full of inactivity. We had a CD release party booked for another band. Yep, we played somebody else's CD release party, and we were doing
I recognize a theme of big events.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then we were doing a campaign to get on what was called the Rockstar Uproar Festival.
I remember that. Yeah.
And
oh yeah.
It was, and now we're kind of heading towards the end.
Yeah.
So the Rockstar Uproar Festival was something that was sponsored by Rockstar Energy Drinks and Best Buy. And that particular year, the headliners were Avenged Sevenfold and 3 Days Grace.
Never heard of them.
Yeah, never heard of them. Bands.
No, wasn't Disturbed on that? Am I?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
It made it even better.
Totally.
Yeah.
Right?
So we started a campaign to get on that. Local bands could submit their music and then vote. And then voting for each other's bands and voting for our own band became kind of a full-time job in and of itself.
Oh, yeah, like the crowdsourced votes.
Yes.
Kind of thing.
But, it was the thing everybody was doing, and by the time it was all over, we ended up with the second highest vote total of anybody in the United States.
Nationwide.
It was pretty impressive. Yeah. Yeah, that's what you miss, Corey, huh?
Wow.
Yeah.
And so impressed.
It was
I look at you guys so differently now. like Mike with his little podcast setup next to his Mortal Kombat 2 arcade game. Like, God, life would not be the same for Mike Clark if it hadn't been for the Best Buy Rockstar Energy Drink thing.
But so we ended up on that show, and even getting selected for that show kind of had some shadowy stuff behind it.
That was a clusterfuck. Yeah.
Because the radio station that was sponsoring this show in our market had picked us, but the Rockstar Energy and Best Buy people had picked another band. So decided to put us both on the show when, honestly, okay, taking our opportunism out of pocket, that other band was selected by Best Buy and Rockstar Energy Drink. They probably should have been on that show.
Yeah.
They were picked by the sponsors. They probably should have been on that show by themselves. But we got put on that show because the local radio station had paid attention to our vote tallies. Because of that, it's like, yeah, we played on a bill with Avenged Sevenfold and Disturbed and 3 Days Grace. And, we played a good set, but I don't know if I've ever talked about this, but that was the day I decided I was done. But you had something there, Lowell.
Wait! Before you just go ahead and kick that over to Lowell, why was that the day you decided?
I'll come back to that.
Okay,
I'll come back to that.
Right. I just didn't want to miss it.
It was a great. I mean, it was a great opportunity. I mean, we played in front of like 10,000 people. I mean, it was pretty crazy. I mean, and I thought we played an excellent set. I mean, I felt. When you get off stage and you're either like, I was so on it hurts, or
you either know you did it or you didn't.
And I felt like we knocked it out of the goddamn park,
And one of your heroes told you we played an awesome set.
Yeah, that
Neil Peart was there.
Yeah, no, Neil Peart was not there. So we played like several bands before Seven Dust, and if anybody's a drummer out there, Morgan Rose is a god among drummers. I mean, this guy does like acrobatic stick flips in the air, throws his sticks up, 20, 30 feet in the air, catches it without looking with the other hand. While he's playing, while he's singing, this guy is freaking amazing, and had been, looking around to see which tour bus was theirs the entire time, while we're looking to go up. And finally we get called onto the stage and it's like, okay, time to do it. Get up there, kill it, get down. Out of every, I was totally not even looking for it. I was looking to go get a beer, and I see Greaseman walking, and and I look over at him and, hey, what's going on? He's like, oh, this is our guy right here. And he's walking with Morgan Rose, and I'm like, ah! It was this moment when it just took me on, and I was like, oh my God, you're Morgan Rose. And he's like, oh yeah, this guy's a drummer too. And I was like, yeah, I know who he is, man. I know who he is, And he's like, yeah, this is our guy Lowell. They just played. And he's like, oh, that was your band, and I said, yeah, that was our band. He said, you guys killed it, and I'm sure he says that to everybody. I'm sure he didn't even see it. I'm sure he wasn't even in the park at the time. Okay, but you want to talk about photos that I'm going to supply to you. Okay, I immediately turn into like a gushing little 5-year-old fanboy
K-pop band.
Right? Here I am married, have children, super proud of all of this, have my dream job that I'd worked on for a long time.
Dirty things in a parking lot.
and a
drummer from Avenged.
And I immediately say to him, Seven Dust. It was Seven Dust, and I immediately say to him, "Oh my God, dude, you just made my life!" And then I have this picture of me looking way too excited, shaking hands with him.
I think the pictures.
I have to apologize to everybody for like just saying Avenged Sevenfold when I didn't. Okay, honestly, I didn't know it was like I don't know drummers.
But yeah, I will supply that picture to Mike.
Yeah, I had a similar experience. Funny, Corey mentioned Atreyu, but Brandon from Atreyu, his side project, played one or two bands after us.
Okay, I remember that.
And he had kind of the same compliment. And you're probably right. It was probably a company line that they toss out to bands in different markets. But that was pretty cool. Kind of going to answering your question. Why was that my curtain call, or where my headspace was at? My headspace was very similar to yours, whether you realized it or not. I think that last year of Aurasing, I had checked out of that style of music. Mm-hmm. And to answer another one of your questions, we did have a third album prepped. we were going to do a third album the same exact way that we did The Deepest Cut. The method that we had recorded The Deepest Cut. And I know that Tony...
What was that method, Mike?
Well, it was done by ourselves. I don't want to pull the curtain back too much.
Sure.
But it was done by...
But it wasn't at like Arc or like Warehouse
Nope.
or something like that. Okay.
Nope.
Fair
Nope.
enough. That was really what I was getting at.
Nope. But we were ready to do, but I didn't have lyrics written to shit. Like, and that's just because I couldn't. Like, I just wasn't in the headspace to write that style of music. That whole last year, I was listening to hip hop or Ryan Adams, and that's all I cared about was hip hop or
Hard
Ryan
to
Adams.
translate those two like influences into like what Aurasing was about at that time.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, that's the creative side of it. The other side of it was the writing was definitive. My marriage was going to end within that year. Like, it wasn't for lack of trying on my part, but it was trying to make it work, but it was just not going to work. So I'm walking around West Ferry Amphitheater where this big show is at. You know, whoever was playing in the background, whether it was Avenged Sevenfold or Seven Dust, and I'm walking around and I'm just kind of drunk, reeling in the day. And I was thinking to myself, this is the biggest show I have ever played. This is the biggest show I will probably ever play. And I'm okay with it being done here.
Like your Super Bowl.
Kind of.
Okay.
It was kind of that moment. So, but I didn't express that to anybody. I didn't have any talks with anybody. I didn't kind of have a heart to heart and say, you know, this is where I'm feeling. So we had one more show. Right. We had one more show on the books, and it was a Halloween show that was being put on by our friend Dave, and it had like every big local band at the time on that bill, and that bill flopped. And it flopped hard. Yeah. And it wasn't due to Dave not trying
or any of us
or any of it wasn't. He tried. That guy works hard.
Yeah,
like
props.
Yeah, like he works hard. All the bands tried to promote it. For whatever reason, that bill flopped. And I was in a very, very, very sensitive headspace whenever you take everything that I just told you that I was considering at West Fair at the time. And I saw some things that night that I can't unsee. Some challenges to morality. You know, maybe friends of the band committing acts of infidelity. Maybe some chemical consumption that was outside of what Aurasing was used to. And I just I left that venue that night and I was like, this is when I'm going to call it a day. Like I was shaken going home from that very last show that Aurasing played. And I don't know. I felt like my morality was challenged at that point. And I'm not going to say that it was because of the band, but I do think that I felt like I needed to make the next step in my personal evolutionary process, and I couldn't do it. That next band practice that we had, our bass player and Tony and I were sitting in a car outside of the practice space at Ryan's house, and poor freaking Ryan barely got to have any experience. He played 3 shows with
He
our
was
son.
like the greatest dude who was there for 2.5 seconds I've ever worked with in my life, you know?
Yeah.
Let me give props where props are due.
Yeah,
He's a
and
solid
we were
guy.
practicing at his
There's a
house.
postscript story about Ryan with you and me that we can talk about.
Oh, yeah. We tried a band after that whole thing and practiced at his house. And
With the
that
dude
was-
that sounded like Michael Jackson. Like the full
Oh, I forgot about that. Oh, my God.
Yeah. And this other bass player that was just off the charts weird.
Yeah, it still is, man. Side smile selfie.
Yeah. We can provide pictures.
Yeah.
No, it was just like one of those things. Like for me, that particular experience, many years after Aurasing, not to get off topic, but it was super exciting to like get in a basement with Lowell in a music setting and have like Ryan, like who I you know, like we've crossed paths many times over the years, and then to have like these like this new blood, and it just was not.
Yeah, it was.
Good.
It was
and,
not. You're feeling
and the
it.
sad thing was, like, I had a couple of other, you know, things that I had tried. Like, there was this couple guys like Mark and Josh that had been in some other like really successful bands, and went on to do really successful things in their own rights. Like some musically, some not. Like we tried to pull something together, and it just like the chemistry just wasn't there. Like, and never felt like. You could force this stuff 1,000 different ways, and we're not professionals, and I guess that's what separates professionals from like just people that love it. Mm-hmm. Professionals can make it work with anything, you know, but I guess I'm not a professional musician and I learned that through those two experiences, because you either feel a connection or you don't.
Yeah.
And you either like want to hang out with people like long term afterwards or not. Like, bands are like the weirdest relationships.
Absolutely, there.
5-way marriage. You know?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah,
Absolutely. And you know, in ours coming to an end, like I sat in the car with Tony and our bass player, and I told them. They were the first two that I told, and I said, you know, I had made this decision when we played River Riot, and then that decision was finalized at the Halloween show the other night. I think we should schedule one more show, a final show, a farewell, and get everybody that's ever been in the band on the bill, and let's make it happen. And the funny thing is like then those two just opened up and started pouring out. Now I knew our bass player was already pretty much. I could kind of read between the lines. He was pretty on his way out, anyways.
Yeah,
he was going to join
sure.
another. He was going to join another project. You know, and the only people that didn't know that were people that were blind. He was just days away from quitting himself. I just provided the avenue for that. And
sure,
I remember coming in and having that discussion with you. Mm-hmm. Holy shit, were you pissed off?
Well, I don't
rightfully
remember.
So.
Right.
I don't remember. Okay, the part that it's not that I wasn't feeling any of this. I don't even remember the sequence of events of how it happened, but whether you realize it or not, the thing that pissed me off about this whole thing is, I could read the writing on the wall, you know, but you had said something about a final show, and I said something to the effect of, well, I don't even know, maybe we should just leave it, you know, just making like a counter argument type thing.
Yeah.
And the words out of your mouth were, we're going to do a last show with or without you. And I said, motherfucker.
Oh, that doesn't sound like my clerk at all.
Yeah. And so, like, at that point in time, and I'm like, motherfucker, we'll see if this happens.
I don't even remember saying that.
Okay. And I remember saying, motherfucker, we'll see if this happens. And I don't even remember how I did it, but I remember intentionally sabotaging something. And I don't. It's sad that I don't even remember what it was, you know, so that nothing would happen and that would just be kind of gone in the wind. And I didn't even start thinking about that again until after this, you know, that I thought to myself, someday I'm going to finally get to have the last laugh and be like, see, I told you over my dead fucking body, you know. And,
yeah.
And I mean, not that makes any of this better, and not to like leave a bad taste in anybody's mouth, because it was fun, you know. This whole thing was a good, positive, fun experience, you know. People always give musicians such a bad, you know, musicians and over drinking and drug use seems to go, you know, hand in hand in people's minds. But, you know, at the same time, playing music, I mean, I still do it with regularity, play long periods of time. I liken it very much nowadays to like meditation. You know, you playing live, you have to be in the moment. You have to be present and mindful of mind. You can't be thinking about things in the past. You can't be thinking in the future. You have to be very along the lines with it. I mean, it is very mentally aligning, you know, and yeah, I probably was extremely pissed off at the time, but that was the part.
I don't even remember that. I don't even remember.
That was about all that I remember about the whole thing.
Are you sure it was me that said that?
I am 1,000% sure.
Oh, man. Fuck.
And I know we were all caught up in our own shit at that time, you know. And
absolutely.
I can see how this could get totally overlooked, but I'm 100% sure.
Huh. But I remember trying to schedule that last show, and we had all of our strategies used against us. I had a date with the promoter at the venue, and every band that I tried to get on that show were like, oh no, we got this other show coming up. Well, no, we can't do that. Oh, well, we're having a lineup issue. And then finally I was just like, fuck this. We're not going to do a final show.
Yeah.
And just sending all you guys like a text. And like I had talked to Corey about playing. I'd reached out to Adam, see if there was any interest if he wanted to play a song or two. And it just never came into fruition. And I think every year after that for like 10 years, I would get a text from Dave every once in a while. Hey, you want to do an Aurasing reunion show? You never got to do that last show. How about an Aurasing reunion show? And I was just like, I don't think it's going to happen, Dave. Like, I was fine with where things ended.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's like one of those things where that's in the past and there's no sense in chasing it. You know what I'm saying? We had that moment and it was great. And that was that moment forever, you know?
But as somebody that was on the outside, but was at the heart of forming the band, what was your thoughts when the band finally did come to an end?
I thought Adam did like a super nice job, and like Ryan didn't get a fair shot. Like I totally agree with all that stuff, but it just went on for so long, and I got so disconnected with the music scene that I was keeping tabs on you guys and I was rooting for you guys, but I stopped hanging out with Tony during that period. Stopped hanging out with our bass player, but I kept connections with like the both of you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so like that's where Aurasing transitioned for me from like this band and obligation and artistic project and output of creativity to just like a part of my life. It's very similar to like band experience that I had with Trip and Default, which was like my high school band. Like my best friends from high school were all part of that band. I left that band to go to college. They replaced me and they went on for like another 10 years or something like that. Like it just becomes like an organ of like who you are. And I'm never like, I'm disconnected from it. Much like Aurasing, you guys became my next wave best friends. You're never gonna be completely away from it. You're always rooting for those people, but at the same time, I didn't feel like I had any stake in like what happened with Aurasing. Like if you guys went off and did like a European tour, or you guys did a Bath and Body Salts shop, like that's where Aurasing like went. Like or opened your own brewery and you guys turned into like brewery guys, like hipsters. Like it's great. I'm like totally supporting you guys because I was there at the beginning. But I have no stake in like what that is now.
So that kind of answers a good chunk of my next question from your point of view. But from your perspective, Lowell, what specifically about this project connected us so deeply that we're all such good friends still to this day?
I would say, the innocence and the non-planning and the organic nature of all of this. If you would have found me, I mean, this whole thing just happened on a strange off chance. If this would have happened at any other time in my life at all, I mean, trying to sell me hey, we're going to rehearse for 8 hours a week, you're going to get paid almost nothing, you're going to put all this time into it. I mean, that sounds like a lose-lose looking through the world through my current eyes, Right. It's one of those things where a perspective changes so much, and it's just, it was so special that, and so unique and so strange that I just happened to find you guys at that time in my life, because that's the only time this ever would have went down like that, and that's the only way that it'll ever be. I mean, it's one of those things where it's, I've always been a big fan of more is lost by indecision than wrong decision. You can sit there planning and planning and planning, and you never have to leave the station. It's a real safe place to be, but sometimes say yes, say take the ride, see where the road leads. And that's kind of what we did here. And it was great. I made 2 great new friends, met a lot of people, met a lot of fake people, but honestly, I mean, we've had a text group chat going here for at least 13 years now.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh my God. Like when Mike finally became a Nebraska Huskers fan.
Jesus.
He's like, okay, so like Lowell and I have been Huskers fans like since we like were growing up, but then Mike was a Colorado fan,
Yeah.
and now he lives in Lincoln, and now he's going. I don't know if it's like a business thing or whatever, or like just being married into it,
Or it's just straight up trendy.
but now
you know?
you're wearing a Nebraska Cornhuskers hat right now.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, you're outed.
Yeah.
You're outed.
Yep.
You're
Yeah, that was one of
part
our
of the
one
family now.
That to this day, that is my most favorite text between the three of us.
Oh
Is
yeah,
when
absolutely.
Corey and I taking a selfie tailgating at a Husker game, and Lowell sending a picture of himself working, saying "fuck you guys."
It's like, I hate you guys.
Yeah, all right,
It's like,
you guys.
hate it. Yeah, like I think the last time the three of us were in a room was like either somebody was getting married, or
Mine, maybe, may have been.
or
No,
maybe
we
mine.
were-
Oh no, it's yours.
Probably mine.
Oh yeah, I thought you got married before mine.
No,
Me.
no, I did.
We were over here for your get together.
Oh yeah. I
You
had a
you
UFC party.
Yeah, UFC party. But then before that, I think it was your wedding.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
was
it
your
was my
wedding.
wedding.
Yeah.
And then before that was my wedding.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then before that, it was, I don't know. I
Was
figure
there,
somebody
like-
had a kid's birthday.
Was
or
there like a bris or something?
Listen to you guys, man.
But yeah, and truth be told, like
Like Mercury was in retrograde.
right.
You know, like
I
Got
don't
your retrograde
have
right here, bud.
I don't have a lot or a very strong relationship, if a relationship at all, with my extended family. Outside,
I remember that.
my parents, I don't really have anything to do with. My brothers, I've got limited contact with. So when I did get married, my wife gave me the option of inviting my family, and I invited you guys. And that's, there's no secret to why that was, So how has Aurasing in the long term impacted your life? Aside from our relationship, has it impacted your life at all?
Doing anything changes your perception of the world in ways that you can't even tell. I mean, top to bottom, it was a positive experience. There were definitely downfalls there, but it was a great experience top to bottom. And, I can't put a singular finger on how it changed my life, but it undoubtedly had a long and lasting effect on my life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say that what started off as like a experiment in no pressure, just doing it for fun, kind of made me realize that I really, when I set my heart to something, can't do anything just for fun. I'm going to go balls to the wall in whatever I do for as long as I can. And when my heart is out of it, like I learned a sense of obligation to other people, but when my heart's out of it and I know it's out of it, like it's time to back out. Like that was like the life lesson or like the professional lesson. Certainly Aurasing, with all of the fun we had, the innuendo jokes that would not live up in 2020,
Yeah.
which are plenty.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Lots.
Anybody that's been in a band for an extended period of time, whether you get out of the garage or not, you kind of get this like kindred spirits, like from people with music. And a lot of times it's the band is really like the least important thing. Getting together with people and having fun and moving forward on a common cause. So like that part of me, I think, is what has extended our friendship, is that regardless of what ridiculous thing Lowell's doing, I say that because he's super like domestic right now, where Mike's journeys take him, or what's happening in my life. Like, we're buddies and we met through a band, but like the band is the least important thing now. 13
Absolutely.
years,
Totally.
13 years later,
Totally.
it's the least important thing.
It was something we did. I'll tell you, like, to summarize for me, like Aurasing was the final chapter of kind of chasing an unrealistic dream.
Yep.
And so that was, and you have to kind of come face to face with a lot of realities when you're doing that. Like, as much as I wanted to say, like, no pressure, this is just a hobby, it was like the need for excess kind of followed. Like, every good thing that happened, I wanted something better to happen next.
Everybody did too. Everybody fell into that.
And it became an obsession. But I had a blast doing it. I also know that whenever I first started doing local bands, I thought everybody in the world was my best friend. High five, hug, and a handshake. Like, we're all friends. By the time Aurasing was done, I didn't trust anybody, including my own brothers. You know, the guys I was playing in the band with. And it wasn't because I didn't love my brothers. It wasn't because I didn't care. It's just, you know, weighing the good and the bad back and forth. It just, sometimes it felt like there was more bad than good, when in reality, there was more good than bad. So I would say my biggest thing walking away from Aurasing for myself was being able to self-evaluate more. I didn't do that as much before then. So the greatest life improvements for me actually came after the band rather than with the band itself, if that makes any sense. So with all of that in mind, and kind of in the interest of wrapping things up, any final thoughts? Any lasting impressions that you want to leave the listener with?
I can't wait till a time when can have clubs of sorts, whatever they may be, you know, whether it's a fight club with instruments, which I really feel Aurasing was, you know, or other, you know, things like that. I mean, we're currently in month 5 or 6 of COVID-19. You know, it's one of those things where I'm really desperately in need of something other than transactional human back and forth. You know, I'm blessed to have a wife that is, you know, able to at least keep me, you know, conversationally satisfied, but I'm sure she's looking for it out too, you know? I mean, it would be good to get back to hanging out.
Yeah, I mean, it's too long in between, like, from when, like, the three of us get together. So, like, if anything else, like, Mike, I appreciate you putting this podcast together.
For sure.
As a elaborate excuse to get the three of us to hang out.
Yeah.
Hopefully, like, you'll welcome us back for something
absolutely.
else.
Absolutely.
Hopefully we have other things to talk about besides just, like, rehashing old days.
Well, absolutely.
You know.
But I think I want people to kind of, this is a good introduction to the podcast because it is such a large part of my story. I'm missing that. You know, I've been missing that creative element in my life. And this is more my wheelhouse now, you know, and whether we all realize it or not, we are much different people since those days.
Totally.
Yep.
We've all had big life changes, and I think someone would be foolish to assume that if they were talking to Lowell or Corey or Mike in 2020, like they talked to them in 2010 and expect the same person, I think they're fooling themselves. And I think that says a lot about maturity and change and how relationships develop, even though we'll still crack dick and fart jokes until the day we die.
Yeah.
Day I die. Yep.
I mentioned that, like, I found a bunch of old emails from, like, the early days of the band, and one thing that I did notate was you send out, like, that persona of who you are, like, through email. Back then versus now, like, I'm so much more curt and, I guess, professional or buttoned up. Life has gotten so serious, especially with, like, the last 6 months and what's happened with the pandemic. Like, it's just thing after thing after thing. And to go back through those emails and have this conversation with you guys, like, kind of like, you know, wax that, like, period of my life that was very transformative, would have been regardless if I had the band or not, but, like, have that added asset of, like, you guys and Aurasing and the opportunity to go on a stage and play shows, and, like, forever grateful for that. it's been a cool experience to go back and just like think about how much I've grown because of that band experience and because of like knowing you two guys.
Likewise. And that's I think that summarizes everything perfectly. Well, guys, thanks for making the Saturday night trip to Lincoln, Nebraska, so we could do this.
Yeah, thanks for fulfilling our rider to have us down here. You know, like,
yeah,
this is quite the spread we have.
What is that? That's a white trash charcuterie.
Charcuterie. I was promised a charcuterie tray.
Charcuterie tray.
And Mike got the green M&M, so we're good.
Yep. All right, guys. Thank you very much for tuning into the podcast. This has been Caught on the Mic with Michael Clark. Until next time, thank you.